Now, entrepreneurship is a venture that many walk into for various reasons, such as passion, income generation, or just by accident. Whatever the motivation, statistics show that it takes more than just starting a business venture to survive. With over 400,000 startups choking to death annually in Kenya, making it beyond the 5th anniversary is not a mean feat. I had a conversation with Flora Mutahi, the founder and chief executive officer of Melvin Marsh International, on what it has taken her to grow the company she founded 25 years ago to what it is today. Have a look. They say entrepreneurship is a lonely road, well, at least until the success comes in. Tonight, we want to have a conversation about matters entrepreneurship and with a lady who has walked this road for a strong 25 years. She is Flora Mutahi, the Chief Executive Officer as well as the founder of Melvin Marsh International Limited. And she'll be just speaking to us about her journey in entrepreneurship, her challenges and what it has taken to get here 25 years later. Thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you and good evening.
Good evening to you. Thank you for just giving us this opportunity. 25 years is not a short time. How has it been?
Well, I think at the beginning what tended to happen for me is entrepreneurship was not something that was celebrated. Actually, when I quit my job, which I only had for 9 months, and I said I want to go into business, even the word entrepreneurship was not a fancy word. Everybody sort of said, what's the problem? Did you not find a job? You know, who do you want us to talk to? And I kept saying, I want to get into business. And so during the journey, at the beginning, I had two people who gave me very, very good advice. One was the lecturer where I was doing my accounting exams. He said, please form a habit. Don't form a habit that will follow you the rest of your life. Because what I was doing is I was following a career for those 9 months that I was not committed to. So that was the best nugget of advice I ever got from somebody. And the second one was my boss at the time, who was Charity Muya. She just told me, whatever you do, build a legacy. This thing of, in today's world, I'll call it hustling, you know, trading and selling and doing this, you know, this and that. She said, build something that will stay and stand the test of time. So with those two pieces of nuggets, I then went and I saw an opportunity in free-flowing salt. In Kenya, we had salt that would cake when you use it. In fact, it was purplish at the time and damp. And I said, why don't we have free-flowing salt that comes out from the salt shaker? It's dry all the time. And I went to the labs and at the University of Nairobi, I learned how to do it. And that was actually my first product. Put it in the market, and then I realized, of course, there's no feasibility. Remember, I'm young, I have no experience. Put it in the market, and I realized, my goodness, this will never make me money. So as I did my first sale, which was 100 dozens to one of the big hotels, they told me, oh, see you, I'll pay you in 90 days. I was like, what? Again? It reminded me I didn't do my homework. I didn't know business cycles. I didn't know this is what happened. I thought you sell in the morning and be paid the next day. So I decided to harass them. So I went every day to say, please give me my money, please. So in that, I met a gentleman who was telling me his mom has started packing tea because the monopoly of 19 years that had been to one company had been lifted. Slowly, when I listened to what he was saying, I realized, wow, there's an opportunity in this. Within a few days, he also knew a lot of people in Mombasa. I went to Mombasa, learned about the trade, and got registered. I didn't even know what I was doing, but I got in. And again, very green, didn't know what was going on. But I did meet the people who were registering me, and they challenged me, and they said, listen, how do you think you're going to survive against a multinational? I mean, somebody who had been in the trade for that long. And so when I got back home, I personally had a habit of drinking tea with ginger. And I kept thinking, I've got to do something different. Already you hear the salt, I was doing something different. So this one I said, it's got to be different. And that's when it hit me. Why don't I do tea and put ginger? Again, off to the University of Nairobi. I learned how to do that. Within no time, I'm off. And I started doing that. So I put up... I went to the university, put up I learned what to do, and voila, I had a product. But now, remember, this is somebody with no plan, no knowledge, no nothing. I had no capital. So, of course, I came home. I was young. I was still living at home. And I said, excuse me, I need to be supported. That was my biggest lesson in life. And they said, we took you to school. You have an education. You had a job. You quit. You're on your own. But it was the best lesson in hindsight, obviously, that I got, because it woke me up to the reality of what plan do you have?
What plan do you have?
I had none.
Right.
So then I decided, and I went around Nairobi until I found a Kenya Women Finance Trust were giving money to women entrepreneurs. But if you had 100,000, they'll give you 200. So again, I came back home and I pleaded, flat no way. If you know what you're doing, go and do it. But I have a very entrepreneurial mother. So slowly, within 3 weeks, she, again, I was very persistent. And within 3 weeks, she wore down. And she took me to the bank and put up her security. And they gave me against that. Was it enough? No way. It was not even a third of what I needed. But it was what she could do. And I think, to be fair to her, I've already gone against what they really wanted of me, to get a job and get married. So she's like, listen, I'll give you a chance, but you've got to do it on your own. So with that, what I did is then I started stretching every coin I had. When I made the tea, I would go and pick my packaging. I make a run. They'll say minimum order is 100,000 pieces. So I say, make for me, very confidently. And then when they make it, I come back and I say, give me 10,000 for today. And then I write them a check. I know there's no money, but it's okay. It's okay. I write them a check and then I write them 3 and I leave them. And I go to another supplier and I did that. It was a game I used to play, but I was so driven to see this product in market. Yes. And I would actually literally, I keep joking about it. It's well known out there. I would bounce even 5 checks a day. And then I'll call them back and say, I'm coming. But slowly, with a little first sale here and a little first sale there, it started making sense. So I used suppliers' money. I've now used the facility that I've been given. I then decided my SACCO, I had a SACCO and I had a little saving, of course, that I had started when I was working. I went and borrowed on that as well. My friend's mother also gave me money. So everything was just kidogo, you keep building. Okay.
Most people know Melvin from Melvin's Tea.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
That is the popular brand that you have.
Yeah.
But people do not know that you started with salt. So there you had to make some readjustments pretty early when you realized it's not going to work.
Within months.
Yes, within months.
Yes.
So that is a very important nugget that people need to pick up on, right?
Yes. Yes, you've actually got to look at the lay of the land. Obviously, had I been smarter and had I done and I did a business degree, but I think I had never sort of sat down and did my planning. But when I started doing my forecasting, this is after the product is ready, is when I started, because to get a bank loan, I had to do a business plan. That is when it dawned on me. When I ran my numbers, I was like, my goodness, this is not getting me anywhere. I mean, a ton of salt was less than 2,000, 3,000 shillings. So I was not going to go anywhere. And I remember I'm selling table salt. So yes, it's important to be agile. It's important to plan, have a business plan, look at your forecasts critically, study both your external environment and your internal environment. Do you even have the right capacity, the knowledge? I was fortunate enough that when I went to the University of Nairobi, I met a professor who was completely floored by the fact that I've not been in food technology, but I want to enter the market, But he gave me the grace. Every afternoon, he would spend time teaching me the principles of food technology. When I got into tea, again, I didn't know anything about tea. There's no school you can go and learn about tea, despite tea being our largest foreign exchange earner in Kenya and a very widely grown crop. So what happened is I had to go to one of the big tea firms every day and taste over 100 cups of tea for 3 weeks. But I couldn't go as a packer. I had to say I'm just a student. So these are the little things that we need to make sure as a country we are nurturing, so that we can actually use the competitive advantage that we have as a country. Today, I think there's no excuse. Today, I think, anyway, maybe to the youth, maybe I was just young. Yes, one needs to do as much business planning, like I say, look at your external environment, look at your internal environment, walk the trade, realize where you're going to sell. Like for me, when I started selling, I went to modern trade because that's what I understood. So I went to the Chandarana at the time, I went to Uchumi, and, they'd take slowly. Then I start asking people what's going on. I met a friend of mine, Muhaki, and she was telling me, listen, what marketing are you doing in the stores? I'm like, what's that? So you learn about merchandising. So today, I think if I was to advise the youth, I'd be like, please learn the environment, sit with people who have done it before, study, and have a business plan before you do it. I did it the hard way, but I survived. I survived, but it was difficult. So now I put the product in the market, and it's moving very, very slowly. But so I decided, like I told you, she teaches me about marketing. So I said, oh, I see. So I had a little car. I sold that and bought a pickup. In fact, it had so little money. It was a left-hand drive pickup looking like a hearse. And what I did is I went and got Muse Ojwang and Maliwaza, and every weekend and the evenings, I would actually go to the markets with thermoses of tea, serve the ladies, and sell the product. So I did a lot of, you'd call it door-to-door, a lot of door-to-door. And then I remember Githurai at the roundabout was very busy even then. And would go there in the evening and finish your stock. So I used to be very proud of myself. If I leave with 40 cases, I make sure they're finished before I go back the next day. So it was very, 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 I walked the trade completely. When I did that is when I then started asking myself, what next? What next? And I met a gentleman who was working in Del Monte, and he told me, have you entered the general market? The general trade. And I was like, what is that? And slowly he explained to me general trade is where the wholesalers and the wholesaler, the retailer, down to the kiosk level. And he explained to me how to get a distributor and how to cost and all that. So I spent a lot of my time learning and executing like on a very short cycle. So I went off on that, and I did that for the next perhaps 2 years when the business was growing. But building a brand is not easy, especially when you don't have strong budgets, poor planning, So then what I did is I actually couldn't take the business anymore. Okay. And one day my mother is a co-director, and I told her, I'm out, I've gone. And she said, do you want to sell? I said, yes. And she found a buyer. And we put the business out, and she said, the meeting is tomorrow. So I called her in the morning. I said, I'm not sure. I want out yet, but I can't do this anymore. So what she did is she scaled down, because now we had a factory in the industrial area. She scaled down the business, brought it closer to where we live, and put in a manager. And for 1 year, I just went into, I'd call it hustling, doing everything else.
And what pushed you to that point where you want out?
In business, you also need to invest, but I didn't have the marketing money. So I was literally bootstrapping everything. Little bit I sell, I get an order, I sell. So it just wasn't making sense to me. So in that 1 year, we put in a manager, and we managed the costs a lot. And within a year, then I had to come back and sign some documentation. And when I came back, I looked at the bank balance. I was like, oh, okay, I'm back.
Okay, things were working out.
Things were working out now. So I did another couple of years, just increasing the flavors. We started with ginger tea, tangawizi. Then I remember there was a funding from USAID that said they would take us to the UK abroad. And my biggest vision when I started the company was to actually see Kenyan tea sold on shelves internationally, but packed in Kenya. So I went to this consultancy, and they said, how many flavors do you have? And I said, I've got ginger, very proud of myself. Mm-hmm. And we are the ones who started flavored tea in Kenya. I had this whole script for him. Mm-hmm. And he told me, please don't talk to us unless you have 4 flavors. So I had to come out with 4 flavors overnight. So down to market research. I went to those same markets. I asked the ladies, what would you like? What have you, and explaining that tea can be flavored was already a challenge. Yeah. So we would have to just guess what we think would work, go into the market, do our research, come back. So within about a couple of months, it was literally, the program was closing in 2 months. I came out with another 4 flavors. So I think we went into masala, cinnamon, and vanilla. And then we had the ginger and a plain tea.
Most households in Kenya have a thermos flask somewhere just with tea, waiting for either people of the household or visitors to take that tea. So what did it take to push that product now locally?
It took really putting the product in your hand or allowing you to taste, because our differentiation is ginger. So when you explain to people tangawizi tea, they don't understand it. So we had to literally go and do a lot of wet sampling. We call it wet sampling, where you sit in the supermarket and the ladies explain. I gave the teas out in the churches. I personally used to go to the markets. Kawangware market, I think, was on a Tuesday. I would go on a Friday and literally give people the tea. So it was putting the product in your hand. We also did a little bit of PR. Fortunately, I think entering the manufacturing space, I got a lot of offers to explain your journey a little bit. So we did a little bit of PR, so that got us around. But really, it was putting the product in the consumer's hand that actually made the difference. International market, similarly, a lot of it got promoted by people who have taken our product here and want to take the product there. So you get people from Japan saying, I was in Kenya, I tried your product. You get people from the US and such like countries. And even now, our largest ambassadors are Kenyans who have tried the tea. I mean, even just this morning, I got a message from somebody and said, I want it on Amazon in Florida. So basically it's just really getting the product to somebody and getting the word out there.
Getting the word out there.
Yes.
So from this point of having to go and put it in people's hands or mouths,
Yes.
to be specific, and now having people go to the shelves and get it themselves,
Yeah.
what was the breakthrough? When did the breakthrough come?
I think about 5 years into the business. I think also in year 4, I also tried to sell the business again. Because again, it became a little bit difficult. But I would say within 5 years into the business, now it started, paying itself. We started being able to carve out marketing money. It started actually growing in the areas that we wanted it to grow. So all I would do is each year come out with business planning, train the team. I must say, another area that I was challenged as I was doing the business, funding was one of them. Another one was working with people. Purely because, yes, I had done business as a degree, but just getting the right people, your ability to recruit the right staff, motivate them, keep them, that was definitely a challenge. And I think still remains a challenge to date. But obviously, as you get bigger, you're able to afford more sophisticated tools and staff to be able to help you.
Right.
But it's definitely something that I would like to tell, SMEs, that it's something you need to pay a lot of attention because your people are your biggest asset. Yeah.
And from the 5 flavors that you fronted, at the beginning
Yes.
of venturing into that international market,
Yeah.
are there more that you've come up with, and how are those doing?
About maybe 8 or 9 years into the business, one particular day, 4 members of staff quit on a day, meaning they must have been talking about it. And it was a big shock because they were very key. One was in production, 2 were in sales, and I think 1 was in marketing. And that hit me very hard. And I went around immediately looking for solutions because, of course, people leave the management, not necessarily the job. So I said, for people leave people, and managers. And that was myself. So I went out looking for an answer. And that is when I found a book called E-Myth by Michael Gruber that sort of said, you should not be working in your business, you should be working on your business. So it's not you to make sure you do everything. Put in systems where you employ people to do that. And you don't have to then manage them because the system manages them. And your work is to actually see how to grow the business.
How did you get there? Expanding into those markets and the challenges that you face at this point now of that big growth.
I think the challenges remain almost the same. It's just the sophistication that you're able to attack them. Because if it is funding now you can go to the bank and actually get your funding. But sometimes when interest rates come and whatever, it affects your bottom line. People, it's continuously how do you continue to attract the right people and maintain them and keep them. We have had some people who have been with us for 17 years, 8 years. But it still remains a constant challenge. Product development, also now listening to the market, we've gone into this whole design thinking. It's not about what now I like. Remember, I did the ginger tea because I liked the ginger tea. I still do have a very discerning tongue and taste, so I'm always experimenting here and there and always saying, this is what I think we should do. But now it's about listening to the market. What does the market want, and giving the market what it wants. International marketing is definitely very, very expensive, difficult to do. So again, we are still working through people and seeing how we can best do it. COVID, of course, now has even made it a little bit more difficult. But of course, we are loving the new idea of online. So everybody really has switched a little bit more online. So even getting into those markets and promoting online will definitely be easier to do.
And from the 5 flavors that you fronted, at the beginning
Yes.
of venturing into that international market,
Yeah.
are there more that you've come up with, and how are those doing?
Yes, definitely. You see, those were flavored teas. Yes. And incidentally, our claim to fame is we don't use artificial anything. If it is ginger, we mill it. If it's masala, we mill it and mix it. If it's so we went from flavored teas. We added cardamom and a few others. Then we went into herbal teas. I actually tried packaging neem and nettle. So we had Melvin's neem and Melvin's nettle tea. Until I realized people actually want to go and get it in the little polythene bag from someone. Not necessarily buy it in a supermarket. So that didn't do too well. But we then went into hibiscus. We've got hibiscus. We've got green teas with lemongrass, green tea with mint. And then we went into fruit flavors as well, berry blast. So we've gone like now the whole 9 yards, where we have flavored tea, We have gotten into black tea as well. We have a new tea called Melvin's Premium. Well, we've tried Melvin's Premium. Then we went to Melvin's All Family Tea. This is the black tea market we are trying to cover. We know with no flavors. We now have Melvin's Pure Kenya Chai, doing very, very well because people are relating to, oh, these are the same Tangawizi people and they have a plain black tea. And we've gone into orthodox tea now and purple tea. So now we have the whole range. In fact, we say we play with your palate, whatever you feel like. You can wake up with Melvin's in the morning, have something after tea time, lunchtime, and heading into bed, have your chamomile tea, which calms you.
You talked about when you were starting hiring people and maybe they lacked the knowledge. You also struggled with getting that knowledge in this area. Do you think that has improved right now? And what more can be done to ensure that the human resource in this sector, so to say, are well prepared and ready to take up the challenge?
Hiring staff when you're an SME is difficult because you barely have enough to run your own business, and you need to train them in the way you do things. You need to train them. I mean, if somebody has worked with you for a year, how are you building their capacity? Because next year you're bigger than you were before. So now that we are the size we are now, we have a strong training budget, but that was one of the challenges. But what I did during that time is I am constantly learning, and I think there's no other way for an entrepreneur to be than to be constantly learning. Because I always say, if I was in a multinational, they would be training me. So I have to train myself. And the question is, what do I train myself on? Nobody's there going to bring a docket and say, this is what you need to train yourself on. So you're just constantly scanning the land and realizing this is what I need to do, this is what I need to afford. And similarly with your team, and of course now we have HR departments that are able to do the skills gap analysis and decide we're going to train people in these areas. So that is what I'd have to say for that. But I want to talk about training now for entrepreneurs. Number one, I'd like to tell the older generation, when your child say they want to do entrepreneurial, please allow them. I mean, I thank my parents every day that they didn't fall into the trap. Because people are asking me, why, what happened, you're a failure, why are you going to business? And they allowed me to be that. So it is an okay career. In fact, support it. And to the young entrepreneurs, what I would like to tell them is grow yourself. Learn what you want to do. Get early into that industry. Build a plan. Always be learning. Speak to those who have gone ahead of you because they have a lot of nuggets. They ask you questions that you have never thought. You're this horse in this horse race and nobody shows you this side and that side. But the more people you speak to, they'll always ask you a question and you go home and ask yourself, my goodness, I have never looked at it from that angle. So those are the real nuggets I would like to tell young entrepreneurs. Prepare yourself. Nobody owes you a living. And I think that's one of the things I see about it. Oh, we're not being given a chance. Oh, we don't sell a card in this idea. Nobody owes you a living. You chose that route, and it's a rough one. And it's lonely, it's difficult. But it is very rewarding. It is very rewarding when you go out there and look for your answers yourself.
So as we now come to a close of this conversation, what would be your closing remarks?
My closing remarks I would like to speak particularly to entrepreneurs because I think that's where my heart lies, would be to ask people to build a business model that is resilient. Nobody would have foreseen what we've gone through this year. And I am very aware there are some businesses that did not survive and will not survive. There are some businesses that have thrived. As an entrepreneur, you cannot allow yourself to remain there. We had to make a few adjustments, but fortunately being in food and I think having a natural product was an advantage for us. So we didn't have to do that. But I'm saying build a resilient, have a business with a resilient business model. Don't ever fear speaking to people. Keep learning all the time. Keep investing in yourself in whatever way possible.
That was Flora Mutahi. She is the founder and chief executive officer of Melvin Marsh International Limited that manufactures Melvin's tea. That's the popular tea brand that you know. And we have been talking about her entrepreneurial journey where she started with salt, moved to tea, and now she is an international brand, or rather Melvin is an international brand. Thank you very much for joining us here on Business Insight. Continue watching the program.